When we think of the Silk Road, images of sprawling deserts, camel caravans, and the bustling crossroads of Central Asia usually come to mind. Trade routes that connected China to the Mediterranean dominate popular history. But what if I told you that Japan, an island nation often seen as somewhat isolated, was part of a vast and dynamic network of ancient trade routes, far beyond those well-known paths? The story of Japan's forgotten Silk Road offers a new lens through which to explore how goods, ideas, and cultures moved in East Asia long before modern times. Situated to the east of the Asian mainland, Japan might seem, at first glance, tangential to the grand narrative of Silk Road commerce. Yet its proximity to both Korea and China positioned it strategically within a web of maritime and overland routes that connected the islands with the continent. Japan's geographic location, separated by narrow seas like the Korea Strait and the East China Sea, made it an accessible endpoint or waypoint in long-distance trade and cultural exchange. During the early centuries of the first millennium, East Asia experienced significant growth in interregional trade. Chinese dynasties such as the Han and Tang expanded their influence, promoting commerce along land and sea routes. Meanwhile, the Korean peninsula served as a crucial bridge between China and Japan, facilitating the transmission of technology, religion, and goods. These developments set the stage for Japan to engage with broader networks reaching into Southeast Asia and beyond. Archaeological evidence points to a variety of imported materials making their way to Japan through these channels. Items such as silk textiles, bronze mirrors, and advanced metalwork arrived in the Japanese archipelago, suggesting active participation in long-distance exchange. Some of these goods had origins as far away as Central Asia and the Indian subcontinent, traveling through multiple hands and locations before reaching Japan's shores. This indicates not just a simple transfer of merchandise, but a complex movement of cultural artifacts and ideas. Moreover, maritime routes were essential to these interactions. Ships sailed seasonal winds across the East China Sea and the Yellow Sea, linking Japanese ports with Korean and Chinese harbors. These voyages allowed for the continuous flow of commodities, people, and knowledge. It is within this maritime context that we begin to understand Japan's role as more than a distant island. It was an active participant in regional networks that facilitated the circulation of wealth and culture. Yet questions remain about the exact nature and extent of these trade routes. How did merchants and travelers navigate these waters? What mechanisms were in place to regulate the movement of goods? What cultural exchanges resulted from these connections? Exploring these questions helps to illuminate a hidden chapter in the history of Japan and its place within a broader East Asian world. In this documentary, we delve into Japan's forgotten Silk Road, not the well-trodden land paths across Central Asia, but the intertwined sea lanes and overland corridors linking Japan with Korea, China, and Southeast Asia. Archaeological excavations across early Japanese sites have uncovered tangible evidence of these ancient trade networks, revealing a rich tapestry of imported goods and cultural influences. Among the most significant finds are delicate silk fragments dating back to the Kofun period, roughly from the 3rd to 7th century CE. Silk, highly prized for its elegance and durability, was not native to Japan at this time. The presence of these fragments suggests that textiles made in the Chinese mainland or sometimes through intermediary regions, such as the Korean peninsula, found their way to Japan via trade or diplomatic exchanges. In addition to silk, Chinese ceramics have been uncovered in burial mounds and ancient settlements throughout Western Japan. These wares include fine porcelain and stoneware, characteristic of Chinese kilns from the Han to Tang dynasties. Their discovery indicates not only the movement of luxury goods, but also the adoption of new artistic styles and technological methods within Japan. Metal artifacts, including bronze mirrors and intricate iron implements, further illustrate the depth of cultural and material exchange. Many such objects closely resemble items produced in continental workshops, highlighting cross-regional craftsmanship and shared aesthetics. Historical texts support these archaeological discoveries by detailing trade missions and official voyages that link Japan with the Korean kingdoms of Beech, Silla, and Goguryeo, as well as with Chinese imperial courts. Documents from the early centuries CE speak of envoys traveling to these neighboring states to exchange gifts, negotiate alliances, and secure access to coveted goods like silk and metals. Additionally, records mention seasonal maritime journeys that took advantage of prevailing monsoon winds, facilitating relatively swift travel across the East China Sea. Geographically, maritime routes were indispensable to this network of trade. Ships would often sail from Japanese ports along the Seto Inland Sea, a region known for its calm waters and protected harbors, making it a natural hub for merchants and sailors alike. From there, vessels could cross the Korea Strait to reach the southern Korean peninsula, where major cities served as key transit points for goods heading to or arriving from China and beyond. The East China Sea allowed direct sea lanes to Chinese ports, such as those near the Yangtze River Delta, connecting Japan more broadly to prosperous continental markets. On land, important overland corridors extended from the Korean peninsula into Manchuria and central China, while the peninsula itself was both a consumer and distributor of goods sourced from Japan, continental Asia, and even farther afield. The interaction of sea and land routes created multi-layered trade networks that moved not only material commodities, but also technologies, religious ideas such as Buddhism, and cultural practices. This flourishing exchange took place against a dynamic political and economic backdrop. The 3rd through 8th centuries in East Asia were marked by the rise and fall of kingdoms and dynasties. The Chinese Three Kingdoms followed by the unified Tang dynasty, alongside Korea's evolving polities and Japan's own Yamato state. These rulers recognized the strategic and economic value of controlling trade corridors and fostering diplomatic ties. The influence of these ancient trade routes on Japanese culture, technology, and economy was profound, shaping the trajectory of the archipelago in ways that extended far beyond the mere movement of goods. Exposure to continental materials and ideas introduced new craftsmanship techniques that enriched local traditions. Silk, for example, was not just a luxury fabric. It became a symbol of status and refinement, ultimately inspiring indigenous textile production that incorporated both imported patterns and native creativity. The arrival of Chinese ceramics and metallurgy sparked advances in kilns and metalworking within Japan, accelerating the development of specialized artisanship that had lasting effects on Japanese material culture. Moreover, these trade connections facilitated the transmission of technological innovations that eventually contributed to agricultural improvements, military equipment, and everyday tools. The bronze mirrors and iron implements discovered in ancient Japanese sites illustrate an adaptation of continental technologies that supported both ritual practices and practical needs. Such artifacts reflect an active engagement with evolving techniques rather than passive reception, indicating that Japanese craftsmen shaped foreign influences into locally meaningful forms. Economically, the trade routes supported the growing political complexity of the Yamato state. Access to imported goods reinforced the authority of elite classes, creating a network of patronage centered around possession and display of continental luxuries. This integration of imported commodities into social and political life helped to consolidate emerging power structures, setting the foundations for Japan's feudal order centuries later. The strategic control of maritime routes and exchange hubs along the Seto Inland Sea and southern coasts became essential economic assets, contributing to regional prosperity and cultural interaction. However, the full picture of these trade networks remains incomplete. Written records from early Japan are limited and often fragmentary, while many trade practices and informal exchanges left little documentation. Archaeology offers glimpses, but cannot always specify the origins or the full uses of many artifacts found. Such uncertainties underscore the challenge of reconstructing a comprehensive narrative, yet ongoing interdisciplinary research continues to reshape understanding. Advances in material analysis, such as isotope and textile fiber studies, alongside underwater archaeology and historical linguistics, bring new insights into the routes, the timing, and the actors involved. These hidden trade routes reveal a Japan deeply interconnected with continental Asia, contradicting long-held assumptions of insularity. They highlight the dynamic processes through which Japan absorbed, transformed, and reimagined foreign influences to create distinctive cultural and technological identities. In this way, the so-called Forgotten Silk Road is not just a historical curiosity, but a vital thread in the broader story of ancient Asian trade and cultural exchange. Recognizing these maritime and overland connections enriches Japan's historical identity, situating the archipelago within a vibrant network of interaction that shaped the region's development. The legacy of these routes persists, reminding us that Japan's past is intricately linked to a larger narrative of mobility, adaptation, and exchange. As research progresses, the contours of this hidden history will become clearer, inviting us to reconsider the complexity of ancient globalization in East Asia and Japan's enduring role within it.